And took me another 7 years. About 6 or 7 years.
And then you started getting restless again with your athlete inside.
Oh, yes, yes.
Started working really hard and being driven to become the world champion.
Well, you know, the strange thing is, part of all that aftermath of that experience was my competitive athletic endeavors stopped making sense to me. So I would be like in a race, and I would be thinking, what am I doing out here? As soon as an athlete asks, what am I doing out here, your athletic career is over. You know, as soon as that thought arises, forget it. You know, that's too much clarity. It's not going to work. But, so over the next few years, I stopped competing. But strangely, I kept training as if I was competing. I knew what was happening. I knew what I was doing was maintaining the identity of the athlete. Because the athletic identity, it has a lot of pluses to it. There's a sort of a physicality of strength, even though, you know, I'm a little guy, but, you know, I could ride a bike for 7 hours really fast. So there's a whole very positive identity that goes, that's who I had been for many, many years. And even though I knew that what I was doing, that I'm creating this thing, I'm maintaining this identity that's not true. I knew it wasn't true. But it was like there was that conditioning, and I couldn't not do it. I just couldn't not do it. And so I did it, and a few years later I got sick for like 6 months. All sorts of illnesses, you know, that were undiagnosed, but serious, you know, in bed for a lot of 6 months, and that crushed the identity. You can't be strong, super athlete man when you sat in bed for 6 months. You're really weak. And after those 6 months, I felt wonderful. To be free of that athletic, physical identity was wonderful. Wow, this is great. Be nice if I could tell you that it never came back. Time went on, and before I know it, you know, like a drug addict or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know,
well, you said
I
was addicted to the me.
I was addicted to that particular identity, yeah.
Yes.
Even though I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah. And did you know that this,
Strange.
you also knew that this is the very thing which probably was in the way?
Yeah, I knew that too.
To finish your path.
So it's strange to have a lot of consciousness about something, but not being able to stop you from doing it. You know?
Did you find in your teaching, working with people, that's the most difficult thing? To go beyond self-identification.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The identity. I've seen that people can actually have great insight at moments beyond it, and to see that that's not who they are.
Yeah.
And often that insight, it's not really enough to really break down that identification. It's like one transcends it, but it's like still there, lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
So that when I call it the honeymoon of your awakening, you come back from it, there will be that old identity waiting for you. And it often slips in like slowly and incrementally, and it's almost like you don't even know that it's happening until you kind of feel the lights go out a little bit again.
Yeah.
You know,
And it has so many different faces.
Doesn't it?
You know, layers and layers and layers. I just was, you know, when your wife, Mukti, said to me, she was in Vienna, I felt immediately, oh, Vienna. You know, I felt my identification.
Yeah.
It's all over. How can you ever get out of that?
No, it's everywhere. It's so many layers. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
So sort of has its tentacles everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we?
So I'm still meditating, and then after the 6-month illness, I start, start writing, because I've always have what I call blue collar body. My body likes to work.
Yes.
And I had been very, very physical from the time I came out of the womb almost. You know, I was walking before I was 1 year old, and that was just a part of, not so much of, intrinsically not an identity, just a way that one's hooked up.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that would start, and I would start to ride my bike, and it was really nice because I didn't have the identity, you know, and if someone passed me, it was I didn't care. Oh, this is lovely.
Yeah.
But incrementally,
Yeah.
you know, it comes back, and before you know it, I'm training like I'm an Olympic athlete again. And yet, I'm not competing, I don't want to compete. I knew it was happening. I watched it, it was recreating this identity again, and once again, I was seemingly powerless to do anything about it. And so it got created again. Not as much as before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a very wounded identity, because there was a lot of knowing that it wasn't really true, but nonetheless it came, and well, I got another 6-month illness, you know. I had mono and a lung infection and a sinus infection and all this nasty stuff all at the same time, put me in bed and crushed it.
So you had a lot of time to think about the identity.
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. And when I started to regain my health, then I had lost the taste for it. I just had no aversion to it. But it wasn't, because I don't think it's so much that the identity goes away that's important as the taste for it, which is kind of a desire for it, but I think desire is such an abstract word, right?
Yes.
When we have the taste for something, that's what inclines us back towards it.
It's almost a whole bodily feeling.
Yeah, it's very physical, isn't it?
Yes.
And emotional and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, I didn't have
it's
it
a
anymore.
grabbing,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah.
Yes, it's a grabbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want
No, you cannot
what you
have.
grab
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it anymore. That second illness, I look back at both of those as purification events. And after the second illness, I'd somehow been purified of the taste, the wanting for not only that identity, but any identity. It just there was just no wanting in it. There was no draw, no pull. You know, it wasn't that I even pushed anything away. It was just gone.
It did it all itself.
Yeah, with 2 6-month bouts of illness and
Well,
4 or 5 years, and yeah.
It took the time.
It takes whatever time it takes. You know,
Yeah.
we all live through kind of our lives. I think are tailor-made for our own awakening, our own clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one morning, you got up.
That
And
was a
you-
few years later, after
Yeah.
I'd met Mukti, my wife,
Yes,
and we had been
yeah.
married, less than 2 months.
Mm.
And it was really interesting. When we got married, I had a really feeling that this is a wonderful relationship. I cannot ask for more than this. I cannot ask for someone more than she is. It just was, from a relationship point of view, this is everything I'd ever wanted. And yet, somewhere inside, I realized one day, it's not enough. And what it wasn't enough, was I realized that spiritual thing, whatever that was, it was unfinished, undone. That putting this fantastic relationship, even that, wasn't going to satisfy that spiritual movement. Nothing was going to satisfy it. And I just thought, strange. Nothing's going to satisfy it. Nothing on the outside. Nothing. Nothing that anybody looks for. You know, soulmates and all this stuff. It's like I got to tell people, go find your soulmate, and you'll realize it might be wonderful for your relationship life, but it's not going to solve the deepest thing in you.
Yeah.
And so that was just there, but of course now it was still the absence of seeking. But I still meditated. One morning I just sat down to meditate, and again, significant things for me in meditation happened immediately when I would sit down. Almost immediately, not after I got into some wonderful state. And I just heard a bird outside, and I heard the bird, and a question arose from my gut, not from my head. I literally felt it start in my gut and travel up my body and register in the brain. And the question was, who hears this sound? And as soon as that question came up, hit the brain, then there was just the bird, the hearing of it, the hearer of it. All of it was just one thing. There was no separation at all between me, the hearing, the bird, the anything. It was just one event. And was surprisingly simple, surprisingly simple, and yet extraordinary in its own way. The thing was, though, at that moment, there was no emotional content. None. No ecstasy, no excitement, no nothing. It was completely devoid of any what I would call byproduct. It was just that pure knowing of one.
So is this, would you say, the witness collapsed?
Yes.
So you were the seer and the seen and the hearer and the heard. That was just all the same.
All the same thing. All the same.
So you were gone.
You could put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was gone, and in a strange way, I showed up as I'd never shown up before. I, as a sort of a separate thing, separate from a bird or from you, that was gone. But somehow, wow, something was finally extraordinarily present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then something fascinating happened. It fascinated me when I read about it. You saw a string of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
And you saw where you are trapped. I guess you as awareness was trapped.
Yeah.
And as you put your attention
on each one of those, yes.
Yes.
So I got up.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sitting there. There was just sort of the next thing to do was to get up. I had strange questions like, literally the way I'm hooked up is very practical. So the first thing I thought, let me see something really practical. I looked at the stove. And I said, see, is it the same as the bird? Sure enough, it was. And then the thing was, it sounds silly to tell the story because it sounds so unspiritual, I thought, what if I really push, how about the toilet? Let's open the door to the bathroom. And I looked in there and I thought, I'll be damned. Same. There's no, the seer, the seen, the scene.
So you were the toilet.
The same, yeah. So I went to the most practical things, because of course you bird, okay, a tree, a cloud, a sky, of course.